Okay, my time is up here. So, John, let's talk about where you think we are now today.
Well, thanks, Toru. It's great to be here. I'm very excited, as you know, about the book. And one of the reasons I look forward to actually writing the foreword for this book, because I think that we are at a critical moment in the history of education, the ability to rethink education given the tools that we now have available. I mean, it's very interesting to be sitting here with you and Vijay at MIT. You know, Vijay, I mean, we were together many, probably 4 decades ago when MIT kind of pioneered the Athena project, and I was at both Brandeis and Newman. There was a sense that we could, with those tools, reinvent the way learning happened. You know, it's now 40 years later, I hate to say, and I think our dream is about to be realized. I think that we live in, first of all, extremely interesting times. You know, it is maybe passé to say, but we're living in a period of exponential change. That really means that we have to figure out a way to reconceive learning, reconceive education, so that not only are we learning faster in the classroom, outside the classroom, on the campus, but learning in a way that we continue to learn after we leave the campus, because many of our skills won't live for 5 or 10 years after we've had them. Many of us are going to go through 2, 3, 4, 5 careers in our life. How do we actually pick up these new types of skills? This has as much to do with picking up the strategies of informal learning as well as formal learning. And I think that the beauty of kind of the whole open education movement is how do we learn both in class and outside of class? How do we continually learn new ways to do things, and so on and so forth? It's so curious to me and so wonderful to see that, in a sense, the openness of the way we learn how to do science is now making its way into the realm of learning. And you know, MIT was one of the places, along with the Connections Project in Texas, from my history, kind of opened up the idea of how do we kind of bootstrap our own ability to build better and better and better material that's more and more current, material that actually brings the user in as kind of a full participant in kind of shaping that material, and so on. And I think it's very nice that this book is not just a report of kind of the projects that are going on, but the critical reflections. What have we learned after like 10 years of this push in the open education, starting with open courseware and connections? What can we now step back and realize, what can we do better? What have we learned? What are the key lessons, and so on? I think it's interesting to see how we can now start to transform not just the ability to have shared content, which is something that is kind of atypical, if you remember, even 6 or 7 years ago in the education realm, but now saying, hey, can we kind of look at this from a global point of view? How do we learn from each other as teachers, as professors? How do we actually bring students into this game to make the material better and better? How do we kind of improve that? But how do we actually learn ourselves more about being more effective teaching? And I think, you know, Toru, one of the great things I've learned from you over the years is the ability to kind of accelerate using technology learning communities amongst professors and amongst teachers. So not only do we want to find ways to bring content and spiral content up in terms of its quality, but we want to actually figure out how we can learn more effectively from each other. And if you realize that we're playing this out against a global scale now, we have the opportunity to learn so much from the students that are using this material if we were to kind of think about this from a notion of kind of an open learning participatory platform, where this notion of Web 2.0 comes to the forefront. I mean, if you wish, this book reflects the major shift from Web 1.0, a push notion of just push the material out there, to kind of a Web 2.0 in terms of how do we become more participants? How do students learn from and with each other? How do students and faculty live together? And then how do we make that richer than ever? How do we put like instruments online so that places that don't have the fanciest tools can actually run key experiments, and so on? Now, having said all that, it's not quite enough. I would like to think it was enough, but let's go back to the early days. Let's face it, all of us remember critical moments in our own learning where a teacher stepped in, a mentor stepped in, a coach stepped in at the critical moment and said, why did you say that? Or did you ever think about it this way? And so on and so forth. So I think now we got to look at the fact that 20 years ago we tried to build intelligent tutoring systems, intelligent coaching systems, that if you had $1 million machines, as I used to have, you could put $1 million machine working on one student, and you could actually get something pretty interesting going. Today we have computers 10,000 times more powerful. We're now at the stage where we can actually take this open education material, and we can also take this co-notion of intelligent tutoring and coaching and see how we bring these two worlds together. So how do we take this sense of kind of peer-based learning, perhaps, augmented by some lecturing, but then augmented by some kind of mentoring in terms of automated intelligent coaching, which I think you see beautifully being developed out of the Carnegie movements, et cetera, well described in this book. How do we kind of build a new collage of brand new kind of constantly improving material, more and more powerful instruments that we can run experiments on, new ways to do visualization and so on and so forth. And then on top of that, a whole new approach to building mentoring systems that can kind of figure out those key moments to come in and help you when you get stuck. We're beginning to have the puzzle, the pieces of a brand new jigsaw puzzle that we're figuring out how to put together here. And I think if you look at this book, you'll find kind of reflections on each part of that, but you also see the attempt to start to put these pieces together. And I think that we're going to find ways to construct a complete new type of learning tapestry by combining these pieces in terms of an ability to engage in perhaps peer-based augmented learning that will stay with us for life. And the practices that we're picking up now, I think, will actually provide students the ability to constantly pick up new material. And I think it's the fact that you got to realize that in today's world, if you can't feel comfortable embracing change, if you can't feel comfortable picking up new skills, if you don't understand the difference between knowledge and knowing, where knowing is activity-based, and if you actually think about this fundamental shift I think is happening in the revolution we're going through, characterized in a lot of these chapters, is how do you move from this focus of Homo sapien, knowledge, to the Homo faber, that is the maker, man, intelligent man, or man as maker, in terms of how do you use tools as new way to interact with each other, with material, with the world, and to learn through those interactions. And that focuses more on knowing, not just knowledge. Knowledge, maybe we can look up in Google. Knowing is something we have to kind of learn through these participatory environments that we're talking about today. So to me, that's why I find this so exciting, is that in a curious way, the explosion of digital technology, still increasing its exponential path, is driving change ever faster, which is creating a tremendous problem for the old ways of learning and teaching. But this same thing that's driving this challenge we have is also providing us the tools and mechanisms to attack this problem in fundamentally new ways. So let's hear from you, Vijay. I think you're kind of right in the middle of this stuff.